what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to The Culture Code, a 5-episode pulse check series where leadership, multicultural marketing, and technology collide. I'm your host, Christian Ponce, and for the past 25 years, I've dedicated my career to marketing communications and public relations with a focus on inclusive and multicultural marketing. As I often say, marketing is my passion, but multicultural marketing is my calling. We'll explore how higher education institutions can better connect with diverse and multicultural audiences, leverage technology, and implement best-in-class outreach marketing practices to advance your brand's mission. Each episode explores different aspects of the marketing mainstream. Experts, leaders, and practitioners share valuable insights and practical advice on creating culturally relevant campaigns to help your institution stand out from the sea of sameness. So buckle up as we soar to new heights and reach incredible marketing destinations. This is Culture Code. Sean bienvenidos. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Culture Code. Today we have with us Ray Martinez. Ray is the VP and CEO of Archer Education, where he leads a team of analysts, specialists, and project managers to deliver SEO strategies for top higher education institutions. In this episode, we're going to explore the vital role that technology and artificial intelligence play in higher education marketing campaigns. And we're going to discuss how the AI functions and what elements are at play with this technology. And we're going to talk about how these tools are so important for higher education marketing and for what reasons. Ray, thanks again for being on the show. I appreciate it. It's so great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me here, Christian. Always great to see you again. I know we've had many chats. I think we last saw each other. Was it AMA Vegas? Was the last time we saw each other?
Mm-hmm.
So always great to see you, chat higher ed, and thank you for having me on.
I know that as vice president of SEO, you do a lot with tech. I mean, I know you're a tech savvy person, and that's what I thought that we could have a good discussion about AI and the technology of enrollment marketing for higher ed. Let's talk about what the role of AI is, and let's talk about how do you think it's evolved in the last 3 years? And if you can you talk to us about how you're using it in your day-to-day work with your clients?
Like my role, and I'll frame SEO in a traditional sense. So for those who don't know, SEO is search engine optimization. It's the practice of driving organic traffic, so organic listings in search engines, driving traffic through those non-paid listings on a Google search or a Bing search to drive prospective students. It's a very cost-efficient strategy, but what's happening with things like with tools like Google search are we're seeing a proliferation of new features like AI overviews, as well as Google Gemini, as well as new competitors like an Anthropic, like a ChatGPT, that are coming into the play, into the landscape and providing our prospective students with more areas to engage with our brand. And what that means is now, where we had to cover ground on search engine results pages, we now have to cover ground outside of that. And I think there's this larger shift around, accessibility around technology and being able to do more with some of these tools, but it's also understanding what the guardrails are and what the weaknesses of these tools are. So, a great deal of my work here at Archer has been, especially over the last 6 months, has really been, okay, now we understand it because, at Archer, we've been, using and testing different AI tools and techniques probably, since 2020, 2021, where there was a tool called Jarvis, which was a content writer. It was a terrible tool. We never really used it. We just wanted to see what it could do, and it was very far away. And since that, our teams just find ways to create value for whether it be for us internally, I think, or for data analysis for a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think they're just different things that we do, but there are things that we clearly won't do. I don't believe that AI should write content purely. I don't And there's a reason why. I think, you need human
Mm-hmm.
interaction with content. There are things that I'm more skeptical of, like, if I'm having, AI write descriptions for pages, AI just may make something up.
Gotcha, gotcha. And we'll talk about
Yeah.
later in the episode. I want us to touch on that idea of human intelligence and artificial intelligence and what is so necessary. But if you can speak to us a little bit about, I think the audience really want to understand what tools are available for AI and higher ed marketing. Can you talk a little bit about what are you using on your daily work? And I'm going to date myself here a little bit, okay, before I ask the question. I learned how to type on a typewriter, believe it or not, which is crazy. And then I
I mean,
remember when word processing came on, man, and it was like revolutionary. Let alone when I was in college, Windows 95 came out, and we thought we were living in the future. That was just incredible, right? I feel AI is having that type of disruption now. And in the same token that a little people were a little bit worried or intimidated by Windows, because I remember that it was like, oh, it's so powerful, and people didn't know what to do with it. You have to kind of learn the system. I feel that question number one, should they be intimidated by it? And number two, what tools are you using on a daily basis to do the work you do for your clients?
yeah, I mean, question number one, I think, no, you shouldn't be intimidated by it. I think these
Okay.
tools are created to be user friendly. They're created so that you don't need to write code to structure a prompt where you previously may have. Now it takes a text input or it takes an image, so that it makes it so much easier and so much friendlier to users. Tools that we use, I mean, we've used things like, you know, Lumen 5 for video creation, Claude, which is a competitor to ChatGPT. We've used ChatGPT, ChatGPT Plus, I've tested all their models. My team's tested Operator and done some research with, advanced user agents there. Yeah, like there are just tons of tools out there.
Have you heard of Elephant AI? Lately, I've been using Elephant AI for KPIs, and it's really, really cool. You still have to do in the same token that you have when you work with ChatGPT. You still have to do the prompts and all of that good stuff. But it used to take me hours just to get in just to trying to figure out what is it that I really want to test and measure, right? Thinking about for a particular campaign, what is it that you want to do? Obviously, you do the pay per click and all and reach and all those things that you do with paid marketing. But to be honest with you, you can expand those to PR. You can expand that to content, and Elephant AI is fantastic. So definitely, so you are beginning to use these tools on a daily work as you work in SEO and work with your clients.
Yeah, Archer we've been using, since ChatGPT was released, we've been like using that and
Yeah,
testing. So probably, they're what, 3 years old, 4 years old now.
right, right.
And we've gone through and watched each model kind of proliferate and grow. I think Elephant AI is a great example of what's going on, right? Like the landscape right now is we have all these companies just popping up, and some will add value, like an Elephant AI. You find actual value to a core problem and solution, and a core problem, and they're offering you an easy baked in solution. I think the proliferation of those types of tools will continue, but I also think on the other side of it, we're going to see a lot of tools that maybe bloat the process and aren't as efficient. They're just better ways to, we can perhaps use automation or something to achieve.
Going back to mentioning ChatGPT, how do you use it? You yourself, what? I mean, do you use it for like competitive analysis, or do you use it for content? How do you use it?
I mean, I use it for competitive analysis. I use it for structuring my own data. So, like, let's say I have thoughts and I want to, I have a bunch of salient points and I'm writing, and I want to create a table. I'll have it create tables. Let's say I have a
Mm-hmm.
document that I want to analyze. I was like, give me
Yeah.
summaries and key points from this document. One thing I did that was really fun, I pulled a bunch of data and I created a custom metric to measure ratio and rates between two things. And this is like and I pulled it from a public API, and I basically created a dashboard that created a metric for every university in the country, right? Like, I think there are lots of really cool things you can do from a data analysis standpoint, where you can, especially from an institution standpoint, like where you can pull out really unique insights with these tools, right? Like, 'cause I think they do a really great job now at summarizing content, understanding core concepts, as well as organizing that. Because the way these tools work, right? Like ChatGPT is creating what we call a knowledge graph. The answer they're feeding you piece by piece through relationships, right? They're analyzing, okay, what's the relationship of the prompt between all these words, and then they reassemble it to create what we call a knowledge graph. So when we think of it in terms of that, we can really create some unique values by pulling in lots of interesting information. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're an admissions team and you have a script, you may use that script to create like an infographic for your team, so
Right.
they have it up in their cubicle as they're calling, or up at their state or their workstation as they're calling, as they're making calls to prospective students.
Hey, it's Mallory. Quick break for anyone thinking about what AI really means for higher ed. The next step isn't smarter tools, it's a smarter team. Imagine support that never sleeps, help in 100 languages, answers at midnight, follow-ups before morning. That's what a digital workforce brings to higher ed, and it's already happening with Bolt Agents from Element 451. Come see it live at the Engage Summit this June. Register at enrollify.org/engage and use code ENGAGE50 to get $50 off. All right, back to the show.
Recently, I was working on a competitive analysis for a university, and they gave me a list of the 12 cross-app competitors and peers they had. So I fed those to ChatGPT, and I said, give me the market positioning for each of these colleges, and I listed it, and then give me the top marketing message. It gave me that in seconds, Ray, in seconds. 2 years ago, Ray, it would have taken me weeks. Yeah. There's no way I would have been able to get that in a matter of how fast I did it for the purpose of a presentation. So it really can be an amazing tool.
This is where I'm fearful of stuff like this. For example, I did a very similar exercise. I said, let's pull out UVPs for one of my partners' program pages, right? Let's compare it to a bunch of competitors from search engine results pages. And what ChatGPT ended up doing was it ended up crawling my developer site. Not even, it found a link to my developer site. So we, I don't know if you, like, developer sites are just like shells of content. They could be fully baked content. It could be content that my team's currently working on and building out still. So it's referencing information that's not up to date in its research, right? And we don't have control of where the bot goes. I think it can pull out great information. We just need to be very careful with what we feed it.
100%. And I was going to say that the ChatGPT is a great tool, and it's great to save tons of hours in the heavy lift, in the ground, in the nuts and bolts, and that primary work. But you still have to go further and go deeper with critical thinking and the competitive analysis. But it's a great tool to save time in the very front end of things.
I think a lot of people think about it for its outputs, and they don't think about it for its inputs, right? Like, if you've ever worked in a CRM, ChatGPT is similar to that. It's giving you fields, right? Like, and I think that's important to think about when, like, you can pull out information like that easily. What else can I do with it? How can I transform this information? And it's like, it goes back to like, Let's take my admissions team, their training docs, right? Let's pump that into that. And then what are we creating? We can create infographics. We can create quote blocks for our site. We can create newsletter content. We can create, right? Like we can create all sorts of language for our website, for different campaigns, for social media based off of a training. To your point earlier, right? Like that would have taken how long?
Oh,
Right. And now we have team members who can focus on editing, reviewing, and curating, especially if you're a small team member, a small team where you're like it's hard to get content out. I understand. But I think, it's going back to like, what are the right sorts of information I want to put out there? And even thinking about your website, because of these systems and the way they think, I think website structure needs to be the next thing that kind of follows this.
yep, yep.
Do we have the right information on a page that'll allow these AI agents to use us as a source?
No, absolutely. So far we talked about AI and what it is. We talked a little bit about the tools, and we talked about the possibilities. But I think both can agree that human intelligence and the connection of humans doing the thinking, the prompts is absolutely necessary and required. So I think this is a good segue to talk about how artificial intelligence and inclusive marketing and multicultural marketing communications then come together. You mentioned to me when we were talking and prepping this episode that you have some examples about one being very careful about the imagery that you start asking ChatGPT to give you. Can you talk a little bit about that? And if you don't mind, about the example about the texture of your hair, even when you were trying to do some things.
It's funny because I figured out a fix to that, like literally
Oh,
last night.
really? Can we talk a little bit
Yeah.
about the issue, though?
So the problem is I have really curly hair, like really tight curls, and oftentimes when I put a picture of myself, ChatGPT turns my hair straight, changes the complete texture of my hair, color of my hair, will change my facial features, um, to change my race a little, which is
Incredible.
it's weird, right? Like, and I think it's a training model thing because it's like looking at data that it's most interacted with and saying, okay, this is what it's looking for. Um, but yeah, I think there's this bias, right? Like who trained these
That's exactly
models?
the question I have for you. Who trained these models, and why does it do that?
We say who trains them, but who own the training models, right? Because like if you want to really know who trains them, it's folks in like Kenya who were feeding data to Chat GPT. Like I think representation matters here, right? Like you don't have a lot of Afro Latino Puerto Ricans in OpenAI.
Right, right. But my question is, why is it that AI is trying to change the texture of your hair to straight and make you look more white? Why is that?
I think it's just because it hasn't been trained on hair,
Okay.
right? Like because it hasn't even been a consideration. I think because now like what I've done right is I learned how to structure my prompt better. I can control the texture of my hair now. Models have gotten consistently better at doing that,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think I think this goes back to a media representation issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is these models, they train on content across the whole web. They crawl the open web, they ingest content, they watch videos, they store pictures to understand the world around them. In the same instance that where like my hair has changed, ask ChatGPT to speak Dominican Spanish to you. It'll give you one of the greatest Dominican accents you'll hear. I think it's representation, right? Like if we're not represented visually in high-end publications with lots of reach and lots of citations pointing to them, then the model's not going to train on it. So it just doesn't know. And a question I have for you is I don't know if that's erasure or not.
I don't know. I just know that those are some realities with AI, and I believe it's still in its infancy. And I think those are things that are going to be managed with time. But I wanted to move the conversation into another avenue that we can use AI. And personally, another thing that I use AI for in my work is on research, right? Um, Particularly when it comes down to like focus groups, and that idea of doing some analysis and even preparing discussion guides. It used to take me hours just to come up with the discussion guide and basically on the product or on the program, academic program, or whatever it is that you want to find out more information about through qualitative research. And now, Ray, it's just like anything else. It takes me seconds to at least get the first draft of just by doing a prompt about what the program is, what the program is for, what the target audience is, and what the question should be. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of market segmentation in AI? Have you used it for your clients in that way?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think part of that, like that competitor research, was us like was doing market
Right.
analysis, right, and saying, okay, what are the differences at a very at a down to a UVP level,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like how are we positioned versus how is this program positioned on this, and why are we on the same search engine results page? What's the overlap in audience
Mm-hmm.
here? And I think it's really great for stuff like that, for pulling in and citing other sites across the web. Um, I've used it, like I said, for from an analysis standpoint, is like doing link analysis and saying, hey, which links are more relevant versus others, right?
Right.
Like, which means, and why that matters on an SEO front is like links to us and relevancy scores around links allow us to say, oh, are we driving the right
Mm-hmm.
traffic? Are we reaching the right prospective student audience? Um, but AI is really cool with that. Like you could just pull out like so many cool like little insights around. All right, like regionally,
Mm-hmm.
who are my competitors? Nationally, who are my competitors? Okay, um, job market wise, right? Like in that area, in that geo, what's the growth and expansion? Does this match what I'm projected from an enrollment standpoint? Are we
Yeah.
are we meeting market demand?
No, that's great. And I think my follow-up question to this is obviously you have the tech, you have the, you know, things that can do and make your work faster. My question to you is we've talked a little bit about checks and balances, right? So when you do something like an initial draft and are doing some research, what is your next step to make sure that the information you're receiving is accurate? Is there a tip that you can give the audience about that?
I'm of the sense that the easier you keep the prompt and more
Mm-hmm.
conversational, I feel like the better your output will be. When we get too structured here, I think that's where human touch and having an editor come in. Having a team member with that strength and that can actually look at work and edit, as well as using your own expertise as a marketer.
No, that's great. Absolutely.
And this is a great example. I had it look at a program page and it gave me a 50 something page output. And I had it look at all sorts of things like user experience and it gives me content block recommendations. You should add a block on this. And it sounded great. I was like, this is perfect. I brought it to my head of creative and I said, hey, Nikki, can you take a look at this? And Nikki said, this is wonderful. We already have it on page. It's saying new content suggestion, add this block. We talk about AI so much. We experiment with it. We look at use cases on ways it could make our job and lives easier, how it can make our clients' lives easier, right? Like, and so it's just if you create a culture of talking about it, of experimenting with it, I will say, a thing I won't do is scale content for a full site. I guess a quick way to get a penalty on a site. But no, like play with it, experiment with it. Have your team members, if you bake it into the culture, if you dedicate 15 minutes a day to 15 minutes in a team meeting to say, look what I did with AI, or like, hey, anyone do anything cool or innovative, and give space to share with your team. I think, you know, That's sort of that'll bake AI use and scaling it to appropriate like business cases and use cases much easier because like your internal team's adopting it into the culture as opposed to like just trying to use it. It's like, are we thinking about this as from the right lens as a tool?
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Before we wrap up the episode, I really want to ask this question about we all know that AI is becoming a skill set for professionals in marketing and in other areas as well. But tell me how you brought up your skill set in AI yourself. What do you do in the years? And also, and before, what do you recommend for people to go ahead and build their skill set up in I've seen certificates and stuff, but what are some of those principles that I think people need to really know?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like AI is such a soft skills type of deal. Like I had some coding experience, I have had technical SEO experience, and I've used that into this. But like a lot of it's me reading and researching. I find out so much stuff by following the engineers who work at these companies who post their papers. Like Microsoft is really good at posting papers about these LLMs and their capabilities. And it's just, great resource is Mike King, who runs an agency called iPull Rank. They're doing really cutting edge stuff. Like there's a guy named Dijon SEO, who's I believe from either Australia or New Zealand. He's the guy who found that Google's code, for their algorithm had leaked last summer, and understanding the way lots of really great thought leaders in the space. I'll read that, and then I just play with it. Like I use this stuff beyond my job. Like I use AI, like I make music on it, like for myself, and I'll use it to make images. I'll take a picture I take, and I'll have it shift that picture or that image.
Okay.
I'll create new outputs, and so like I think just being curious, experimenting, testing tools, like going like you see something like an elephant AI.
Okay.
Of course within your organization's use policy, but being willing to test and try new things and experiment.
Thank you so much, Ray, for your participation in the podcast. Thank you for what you do and for working together and moving the common good forward for society through higher ed. I appreciate your participation, and thank you so much again for your time invested in today's episode.
Well, thank you again for having me on, Christian. It's always a pleasure to join the Enrollify podcast. Always great to see you, and always great to speak about higher ed marketing and how we can move our institutions forward and reach prospective students and shape this country and help grow it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. Come back next week for another great episode here in the Culture Code.
This Pulse Check mini-series has been brought to you by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.